Bienvenidos a otra edición de Tomando Café con Jesús Hoyos y esta edición va a ser en inglés, en English. And today we're going to be talking about, the evolution in the market, all the different vendors who are catching up to Salesforce. And today we have a special uh, participant, Cameron Marsh, a senior analyst for Nucleus Research. Cameron, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you and whoever is listening to us.
Good
Welcome.
morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So, for those who are listening for the first time, my name is Jesus Hoyos. This is a video podcast. It's going to be in YouTube and all the podcast platforms. And this particular podcast video, Tomando Café with Jesus Hoyos, drinking coffee with Jesus Hoyos, is about with vendors and analysts where we discuss where the market is and people discuss the products and everything else. And I've been following Cameron on LinkedIn with the different research articles that they have because they have good content. You have 5-6 pages, but it's to the point, very specific, not these fancy graphics, to the point. So I said, well, I need to bring Cameron to discuss. And Cameron, welcome. Could you tell us a little about what Nucleus Research is and what you do at Nucleus?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the quick overview of Nucleus Research, the company's been around since 2000, so it's come on 23 years now. I guess, the biggest differentiator of Nucleus is that we're a technology research firm, but we really focus on the ROI of implementation. So the best way to describe that is that instead of writing to the CTO, write more to the CFO. Not so much focused on the, nitty gritty of what technology does, but what does it mean for customers? And most importantly, what does it mean for like their bottom line numbers? What does it mean for them financially? We're the only research firm that is NASBA certified, which is the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy. So all of our research and all of our case studies are up to kind of like those same standards that an accountant would use. So that's kind of just like our biggest differentiator. I cover the CRM market, or I guess the more encompassing CX market. So marketing automation, CPQ, CRM. Come from a more practical background. I've worked in marketing, I've worked in sales, and it's kind of given me, I guess, like the framework or the background experience to, I guess, become an analyst.
Perfect. So are you a coffee person?
I'm absolutely a coffee person. Yeah, I know we were talking about it, but I'm on cup number 2 of the day already, so properly caffeinated.
Yeah, this is I'm on cup number 5 already.
Oh my goodness.
So no, I'm a I need coffee every day, every hour, every minute. So especially
Absolutely.
now that you are in South Florida, there's all those cafecito places. Have you tried already any of those different Cuban coffees
So
over here in
the
South
one
Florida?
place I've been going to quite a bit that I never saw anywhere else was called Panther Coffee, right on Biscayne, kind of close by, but it's been super great. Iced coffee has become a thing for me here now, just because it's super hot.
I know.
Growing up in the northeastern United States, it was cold all the time, so cold, the hot coffee. But iced coffee and I have become good friends.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely here that that's the case. One of the key things that looking at let me use the analogy of coffee. There are so many type of coffees right now out there, and from the beginning, you probably you top of mind, you always associate probably that your coffee with a particular brand.
Yeah.
So when we say CRM, we usually associate CRM to Salesforce.
Yep.
Okay, and Salesforce, started with Salesforce automation. They jump into service cloud, customer service. They move into a community cloud, which is experience cloud, and they started, acquiring other companies, Exact Target, which is now Marketing Cloud, and Exact Target had Pardot, which is now, the account engagement, marketing automation, for B2B and B2C. So, now you have different clouds, and they bought MuleSoft, they have a Slack, and they have a bunch of other acquisitions they have made. Some of them have been very successful. For example, they had Desk and disappear into Salesforce Essential, which is the small business product, I believe, and Social Studio, which is no longer sold by Salesforce. And Salesforce now is moving upstream. It's moving heavy into the enterprise, to compete, head to head with Oracle and SAP. and that's their niche, and that's where you need to be. And if you're a CIO, you want to bet on Salesforce. It's like you are betting IBM, nothing's going to fail.
Exactly.
But you need a team. You need to invest. You need to have a PMO. You need to do a lot of integrations. They bought MuleSoft for that. And there's a lot of stuff that you have to do. You know, and nowadays, when you look at Salesforce, you have the cloud, and then you have all these different clouds around Salesforce integrated. API, integration tools, connected apps, the app exchange, and that's Salesforce. Okay, and there's a huge market over there for that. Okay, now I think there's like two type of vendors that are rising up, or are moving into the Salesforce arena. I want to call it arena because Salesforce can have different markets. You have SAP and definitely Oracle. Those products have evolved. Sales, service, and they have their own CDP, they have their own marketing automation. So they are evolving. So that's the enterprise. So that's one arena of the market. You know, and then you have the Creatios, Freshworks, Sugar CRM, even Microsoft, and there's Zoho One, Zoho CRM. There's many others out there. HubSpot. They are all becoming suites. Okay, they have everything integrated. One data model. You can buy them separately. And but if you're an enterprise, some of those platforms might not be good enough for you at the enterprise heavy duty level. It's going to take time for those companies to go into that, but budget, regions, department, business unit might say, maybe I cannot buy Salesforce. I need something more simpler. Can I get this over here? You know, or you have a small business enterprise, uh, small medium enterprises. What I call it. In Spanish, pymes en crecimiento, which are the small businesses who are growing. And they need stuff because the small business could be very complicated as a big enterprise. Depending on the region, what the product and the industry. And most of the time, these tools are, they don't have verticals like Salesforce and SAP and Oracle. They have verticals. Pharma, banking, telco, health care, and so on and so on and so on. But these tools have flexible pricing, flexible technology, best of breed, that you can buy everything, or you can just buy almost everything and use something else. So I think that's where we are today. So to put in perspective, I'm gonna give you here the mic so you can continue with this and give you your feedback on how the market is going. Is that if somebody wants to buy a complete ecosystem to manage CX, okay, and they have a greenfield approach, they should go with Zoho One, for example. Okay, you can
Yeah.
you can go with Zoho CRM, Zoho CRM Plus, and go to Zoho One. But if you want to start, with everything, will be a Zoho One. And the other side, if you want to start with HubSpot, it will be, for example, HubSpot Enterprise, and you buy all pillars. And all these tools have pros and cons, okay,
Yeah.
depending on where you at. So how do you see this, Cameron? How based on what I'm telling you, how do you see the market, moving with all these tools catching up to Salesforce?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that comes to mind is that you're exactly right. A lot of these tools have caught up to Salesforce. And I hear customers ask all the time, what is the best CRM? And truth be told, there is no best CRM. It's all gonna be what's gonna make the most sense for you and your business right now. But in addition, what's gonna be best for your business 3 years from now, 5 years from now? I see a lot of people make a mistake where they try to immediately satisfy all their immediate needs without kind of keeping their eyes downfield. And that's where a lot of, I guess, the problems sort of, start to arise. And you have to kind of keep all of that in mind because as your business scales, your technology needs to be able to scale with it. And if it doesn't, well, then you sunk a lot of time and money, something you end up moving away from anyway. That's, I think we talked about Salesforce being a leader. That's one of the things they initially did well, right? People think about platforms that can really scale well. Salesforce was the initial answer for that. And I think, a lot of other companies or other vendors, HubSpot, I see a lot of times starts off really well. It doesn't scale as well. So they end up going back to Salesforce, and then Salesforce becomes too expensive. They go back to HubSpot. It's a never ending cycle. And I think now more than ever, it is.
I see it. What exactly you just said, I seen that in Latin America, I seen that in Africa, I seen that in the Philippines, and I see here in the States. Exactly that, the same scenario, back and forward.
Exactly. And I think now more than ever, as the CRM market matures, right, the gaps in functionality that used to exist, that put Salesforce up here and everyone else down here, those gaps are closing, right? So what other aspects of a vendor are going to be the differentiators? In a lot of cases, we find it's the service they receive. In some cases, it's the prices. Sometimes it's like a specific verticalized niche capability that a customer wants. But as those other aspects of the vendor you're working with, it's a partnership, right? And I think people want to grow and scale with the same company in a lot of cases. A lot of customers have kind of shared that sentiment. So for that reason, if you want to be, a long-term partner, it's got to be scalable. And you don't want to jump back and forth between other vendors, because after a while, you want to do business with people that know you, they know your business. You want your account managers to understand what specifically do you want, because that way they can best help you get the most value out of their solution. It's a mutually beneficial kind of relationship.
How you see the pricing scale? Because a lot of the concerns out there, especially with the way a lot of companies are allocating budgets. In the beginning, the CMOs, the sales department will buy Salesforce, okay, and it start growing up, within the company. The CIO now is taking ownership of the technology stack, and and identifying how to maximize the price. And in the traditional model of Salesforce, the core business, you buy users and then you have add-ons. Okay, but by the time you buy those users and you buy those add-ons, it's becoming expensive. Okay, now
Definitely.
if you look at the pricing for the marketing cloud and the marketing automation, and now the data cloud, it's a lot. Okay, you got to be a really big enterprise, you know,
To be able
to
to
come up
justify
with
the cost.
to justify
Yeah.
the cost. But on the other side, there's things out there with SAP and Oracle that they're also providing flex pricing, for some specific customers, because they can do that with CRM and ERP and everything else, HR and so on. And now you have Zoho, for example, that have no contracts. You pay upfront or you pay by month, and you can increase users or downsize users, self-service. Or you have HubSpot that they have pricing, but you can start with free users. And at the moment that you start giving them more functionality, HubSpot say, wait, hold on, now you have to pay.
Yeah.
you know so how do you see that tendency? Are we going to have, would the pricing change in the next 3 4 5 years, or how this or how people, vendors are approaching, especially now with AI, that the big surprise, hey, AI costs money.
Yeah,
And on top
definitely.
of that, I'm still trying to figure out, for example, Zoho One or Zoho CRM with SIA. If you bring ChatGPT inside, how you going to justify keeping that cost down, because you need to go and use those tokens, those credits. Copilot, Microsoft Dynamics, same thing. Salesforce, announce their pricing, and people were like, "What?" How you see that, evolution?
Yeah, definitely. So, in almost any competitive win have spoken with customers where they moved from Salesforce to anything else, price is almost the first thing that they mention. And the reason I bring that up is we actually published tomorrow a piece on this, but the return on investment of CR technology has kind of been on the decline over the last 10 years. There's a lot of reasons for that. But as the incremental, I guess, benefits are shrinking in the CR market, because again, it's a mature market. The addition of AI and GPT has been awesome and it's great, but there's not necessarily a ton of differentiators amongst the AI among each individual vendor. I mean, so as a result, how else do you differentiate yourself? In a lot of cases, that is price. Now, I agree with you where there's sometimes people will try to enter the market coming in at a lower price, call it Sugar or Zoho. But you're exactly right in that over time, in order to maximize profits, you're going to have to increase prices eventually. I mean, Salesforce increased it for the first time in, I think, 7 years by 9%, I think last week. They noticed that. But it's a dangerous game, though, because in the eyes of an analyst at Nucleus, right, we're very, very focused on return on investment. That's sort of our bread and butter. So as you increase cost of software and benefits sort of stay the same or comparable, you're going to start to eat away at the ROI. And the reason why I think that's important is that now more than ever, the CFO is becoming more involved in the purchasing decisions. Right? They need to know that, yes, we can do all of the desired capabilities, functionalities, but we also need to make sure this is going to make financial sense for us to justify this decision. So I think it's going to be really important for vendors to understand where they fall in that market. For example, we were talking about Salesforce is really for the large enterprises. Those companies have the capital or the budget to justify the extra cost. Where someone like Zoho or Sugar, while they have upmarket initiatives, the reality is that a lot of their customers, if they're going to spend a lot of money on their implementation, they're going to go with Salesforce in a lot of cases. And I think the biggest reason for that is if you're going to sink so much money into something, you want to make sure that the probability of you running into issues where the software can't do something is minimized, right? And there's very little you can't do with Salesforce, whether that be through custom applications or, App Exchange, whatever. So I think it's going to be really important, I guess, just to circle back for vendors to understand their target market and price accordingly. Because the last thing you want to do is price your long-term customers out, because that's going to upset a lot of folks. And B, you're looking for market share in one way or another, and it's supply and demand, right? As the supply of CRM vendors, there's intense choice in the market right now. There's so much competition. So as the demand, I guess, increases, price is going to have to stay the same or even decrease in some cases. And that's really just, I think, the result of just people just, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think the next couple of years it might stay the same, stagnant. Obviously, with inflation, everything's going to become more expensive over time, right?
Yeah, this is why one of the key things, when I help my customers and prospects understand what to buy, I said, where you at today with your strategy, where you want to be,
Yeah.
today, 3 5 years, because for example, if you want to expand your footprint in the whole life cycle of a customer, and you're going to buy Salesforce, get Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, and get the digital engagement and get the knowledge base, and then when you start adding up, that becomes expensive, and they go, wait, hold on, they'll scale back, and I say, well, maybe Salesforce is not for you,
Yeah.
or and one of the benefits of Salesforce that you can get just the core cloud, Sales Cloud or Service Cloud, and then you have all those other platforms that you can bring at the lower cost, all the app exchange, that's the flexibility of Salesforce. You can be best of suite, best of breed, a combination hybrid, and there's so many martech, sales tech, service tech, data tech, that you can bring into Salesforce, that you can truly maximize. So that means that you truly need to have an architect, you need to have a solution expert in your company, or hire somebody, that help you be up to date with all the technologies, because that's a huge gap. And that's my next question. With all those toys that we have, all these companies trying to catch up with Salesforce, from the technology point of view, who has a better perspective? For example, Creatio, which is preaching and advertising and growing a lot on the low code, no code promise from day one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where Zoho One, is here are all my 45 different apps. You don't have to you don't need an app exchange. I have it right here. You
Right.
know, and I had done Zoho One implementation where, oh my goodness, I don't need to buy DocuSign. I already have Zoho Sign. I have, I can do integration to Zoom, Google Meets, and Zoho Meets meeting, all three. I don't have to buy anything else,
Right.
So, and they go, oh my goodness. So who's catching up? from that architecture point of view of providing a one solution?
Yeah. So I think that, and I hate using this answer, but it depends. Depends on what part of Salesforce are people catching up to. Now, if you want to talk about the low code capabilities that Salesforce has, started to offer, Creatio is probably your answer, or even Zoho Creator. If you're looking to be able to, extend the functionality of, say, your CRM solution, like you can do with App Exchange, well, Sugar now has outfitters. So it's kind of the same thing. So I think it really depends on how you plan on customizing your solution. Now more than ever, everyone wants a customized solution. Very seldom do we see people using just base out of box functionality, with maybe the exception of Zoho One because the out of box functionality is massive compared to some others. But it depends how you want to go about doing it. Do you want to custom code your applications? Again, yeah, go with Creatio. Do you want everything to be plug and play? Go with Zoho. So I think it really just kind of depends. I think each vendor has their own niche of what they do well. And with the exception of Salesforce, not too many vendors are good at everything, right?
Yeah, I agree, especially in the vertical market,
Yes.
and that will be my next question because you know again, you can customize a solution for your vertical, for your industry, using Creatio or Zoho Creator or Microsoft Power Apps. Okay, but as soon as you start moving into the top layer, they SAP, even Microsoft, Salesforce, Oracle, they have verticals. Okay, any advice on that area? Should people focus on verticals? Should people focus on customizing out of the box? How do you see that?
Well, I will say from an ROI perspective, almost always the highest ROIs come from purpose-built verticalized solutions. And the reason for that is you're paying for only what you need and nothing else. So like for example, when you start to become looking for more verticalized solutions with Salesforce, a lot of cases you are moving up in pricing tiers. So you end up getting everything you need, then you also are paying for a lot of things that you don't need. Which is why it's been really cool to see Salesforce come out with things like Automotive Cloud because it's a verticalized solution. It costs much less. It gives you exactly what you need to carry out your industry specific functionality. And that's pretty true across the board. We're seeing a notable uptick in smaller, relatively unheard of vendors in a very niche market start to get more attention because people are looking for ways to sort of check all the boxes of what they need without, spending a ton of time or money custom coding that or paying, out paying a lot of money for it. So we've definitely seen it quite a bit. Very verticalized solutions are becoming more prominent, I guess, than they were 3, 5 years ago.
And do you see that going down to the small business market?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially it starts off in the smaller business market, and it will, at least I've seen, sometimes runs into a scalability problem. So a lot of these really small niche, we use an auto shop, as an example. It has all the things you need to run an auto shop, but if you were to have, say, multiple locations or start to get bigger, having multiple points of access, it can sometimes bog down a system because it's designed for smaller use cases. So then, if you have plans to expand a ton quickly, then maybe automotive cloud's your answer. But if not, there's a handful of other, automotive type CRMs that would do just fine.
Yeah, because one of the key things, only for you to have an enterprise solution. When I look at business units, I use different regions, different languages, territories, integration limits.
Hmm.
A lot of those functionality features. When you buy something that is for a small business enterprise, they're very limited. Okay, and you need to upscale that. You need to bring up your limits. You need to provide different business units, be able to customize you know the solution by business units, by regions, whatever criteria you have. And that includes reporting, that includes roles, permissions, and a lot of people, I give you up to 3 business units, so I give you up to X amount of whatever. And that comes my next question. you know because of the limits, and it doesn't matter if you are Salesforce or Microsoft or Sugar, you have the hidden cost, you know
Yeah.
to the add-ons, and it's funny because I started to helping some of the customers, and whatever you have in your price list is not what you have in your configuration list. okay, to activate those licensing. And when you download the add-on page, Salesforce has add-on like 45 pages for the add-on. Microsoft has like 30 plus, for add-ons, and you need somebody to understand that.
Yeah.
How people are dealing, in terms of calculating the return on investment, when they realize, oh, I need to buy no more user, but I need to buy more functionality.
Exactly. Yeah, I think there is a misconception sometimes about, or an underestimation, I guess, of the difference between your software licensing cost and your total cost of ownership. And I think, using Salesforce as an example, it is much higher, that total cost of ownership, than I think people initially expect, right? Whereas maybe with a Zoho, it's not, because what you see is what you get, right? You've got the 40 some odd applications, and, at least what we've seen is Salesforce is going to require you to spend money on people in a lot more cases, right? You need an administrator. All of those things factor into that total cost of ownership. Whereas with like a Sugar or Zoho, it's sometimes people's, part of their job is being the administrator, right? So it's a fraction of a headcount. So I think, and that's just as an example, to talk about, it's one thing to reassess how much you're spending on the technology, but you're exactly right in saying when you start to look at, all the other encompassing costs that go into your software, it can get really high really quickly.
Very high, big surprises, a lot of math faces.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I had spoken with a customer, won't say which vendor, but they were on Salesforce, and they kind of just realized they did an internal ROI assessment of where they were at with Salesforce, and it was negative. So they're like, okay, well, we need to change something, because we're at a time right now where, like, we're making the decision between paying more money for software or people losing their jobs, right? So that kind of prompted them to say, okay, let's figure out a way where we can achieve the same functionality but for less money. And the way they would do that is they ended up, going to a different vendor, and the customer said they achieved, about 98% of what we could do with Salesforce, but it's costing us, a third of the price. So that maintains jobs, that maintains, just a relative, and this is a public company, so like that bottom line for stakeholders, like that was really important to them. So I think there are tons of ways you can offset the cost of Salesforce, and I think that's one of the other things that, we were talking about. What are vendors doing to catch up to Salesforce? It's exactly that. You're offering the same or similar functionality, but you're getting it a little bit less expensively.
Yeah, and for me, we can blame here all the technologies, but you need to do the assessment, the change management assessment
Yeah.
internally, the cultural assessment, that with or without any strategy, you need to have dedicated resources to maintain your CRM system. And we know there's an issue out there, because of the lack of resources, but you need to have, your Salesforce admin. You need to have your developers. You need to have the person responsible for DevOps. You need to have your PMO. You need to have your Scrum and product manager team. All those things needs to be there. So again, before blaming Salesforce or any other technology, look internally to be sure that you have the right people to make it happen. And this is something that I see a lot into all my other podcasts. And get the right people right away. Educate the people. Invest in training. And all these tools have the capabilities. They have the resources. The trailheads. The LinkedIn training. There's training everywhere for free. Okay, so people make that investment. Now, after that investment, and assuming people, data is another factor in the data quality, and that could be another podcast, and so on and so on. You need to be sure that you have all that in place. And what happened is that sometimes we said we bet on the technology, let's pray to God it's going to work and it's going to do magic, but no, you need people. you know but you have the people, and the technology becoming you know a problem. That will be something else. and 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 I would like to to ask you, some of to give me your quick opinion of where you see some of these vendors, because everybody knows about Salesforce, okay?
Mhm.
But we mentioned Creatio. It's is from Eastern Europe, local no code. They are making headways in Latin America as well. If I say Creatio to you, what the first thing that comes to mind?
Flexibility. That's the first thing that comes to mind. The ability with Creatio is to sort of give you the ability to emulate the, I guess, very strong technical coding for custom development, but you can do that without needing that strongly, that super, technical person. That's the first thing I talk about. And, most Creatio customers come from an attempted retrofitting of, say, like, a different CRM solution, but they don't have the people to let that happen. So I think what Creatio does really well is it helps you, avoid like the high cost of maybe specialized consultants or anything like that, because you can custom code things in-house. I think that's kind of really their biggest selling point. It's just their low no code. It lets
Yeah,
people like myself who's not, I don't know how to code, but you can, play around with Creatio and you can figure it out. So kind of, puts that power in the hands of the people who aren't traditionally super technical.
yeah, and I can see Creatio to be a tool that you can in local no code that can scale.
Yes.
Okay, that can scale, and and again, that needs to be validated depending on your requirements. Whatever. How about Sugar CRM?
So I think, we talk about all of these vendors sort of catching up to Salesforce. And I think before you do that, you have to figure out, okay, what first made Salesforce great? Why are people catching up? So they were a platform approach, they were cloud. And I think, they had the marketplace. And I think Sugar emulates that really well. They are a platform approach. You've got the services or the features to sort of encapsulate the entire customer journey. You've got Sugar Sell, Sugar Market, Sugar Serve. And, the integration amongst those three is really good. And I think that that's sort of their best, I guess, hand to play against Salesforce is they do a lot of the same things Salesforce does. Their Sugar Outfitters is growing very quickly. It's similar as AppExchange, albeit on a much smaller scale, right? But it allows Sugar users to sort of extend the functionality of their offerings without really any in-house development because, Sugar has the people in place where they know that all of their partners on Outfitters are certified, right? Like, they're confident that the integrations are going to be good. So it sort of enables you to sort of start Sugar customers to start diving into that, highly customized platform without all of the costs and time associated with like typical, customized development.
Okay. Microsoft Dynamics, very interesting. They just announced recently that they're moving their marketing automation embedded into their CDP, and in there they're going to have the customer journey approach, which is going to be end to end. So there's no more inbound marketing or outbound marketing. There's no more you got to buy a marketing automation tool and you got to buy like a marketing cloud tool. Everything is embedded. Uh, how do you see that approach with Microsoft?
Yeah, I think anytime you can sort of consolidate your different applications into one, it helps anybody. And that's true for really any software. To see kind of Microsoft start to take that approach, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, in my opinion. Well, and related to what we just talked about, it sort of eliminates all those unexpected costs, right? If you can kind of bring everything into one, you're not being surprised with, okay, well, we've achieved this, now we need this. If it's all in one place, it's easier user experience.
Yeah, and again, the disclaimer here that if you're trying to do everything, at the very end you don't do everything. you know
Right.
but that's why you have the app stores,
Yep.
where you can buy whatever, and bring and expand into that and use low code, no code, expand, and so on. Soho One I see as a box of Legos,
Hmm.
because you can buy Soho, Soho CRM, Soho CRM Plus, Soho CRM, Soho Marketing Plus, Soho email campaigns, and so on, and then you can buy Soho One. They have 40 plus applications, and they have a really good pricing model. And by the time they bring more apps, they're all included. Eventually they probably, I believe they need to change that model because they probably have to charge for those. I mean, but they own their own data center, infrastructure. How do you see Soho One?
The first thing I think of is extensibility. So, it's plug and play. they've got to 40 some odd apps now. I should know the number, but you know, as you scale, your needs change, right? And with Zoho One, it's static pricing. So, you know, your cost doesn't scale along with your solution, which I think has a lot of benefits for a lot of folks. And Zoho, you can turn things on, turn them off. So if you want to try something out and say, hey, this works, awesome, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, turn it off. Don't bother with it. And you can try those things without having to sort of front the cost of experimentation. You know, I think that in a lot of cases, people are showing an increased willingness to try new things. And I think that's true really across the board. So, you know, if you want to try shaking up your marketing a little bit or kind of pull in different things that Zoho can do, you can also try that without it breaking everything. And the reason I say that is, you know, sometimes you can make like a minor tweak to something that isn't a platform approach where everything's on the same vendor, and all of a sudden, you know, your data is wrong, which makes your reporting terrible. But you don't have to worry about any of that because you turn it on, turn it off, and it all syncs, you know, with each other, you know, unanimously. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I've used Zoho One personally. Usability aspect of that is phenomenal. You know, when we talk about ROI, at the end of the day, we found that usability is one of the most important things about a software because poor adoption rates was the number one killer of ROI. If people aren't using the solution, you're paying for it for no reason. So especially if sales guys, right? If you, as a salesperson, don't immediately see the value in what you're doing, you're not going to use it. So, you know, when it comes time to do the reporting and analysis, if your sales guys aren't, you know, being consistent about the data entering, well, then the data is wrong. And then, you know, data being incorrect or misleading is detrimental for a lot of cases or for a lot of organizations. So, you know, one thing I think Zoho does really well is just their platform is super simple. You know, it's very streamlined. The learning curve is very, very, you know, quick, easy. We see, you know, time to value of Zoho is one of the best in the market because you turn it on, in all cases, it works in weeks, months, and you can immediately start using it. So, you know, we talk about, you know, technology through the financial lens. Time to value is really important, especially because people are, the economy is tightening, right? So you have to be more, I guess, conscious of what's the financial impact of the decisions you're making. So if that has a lower potential, I guess, to turn into something that's gonna be super expensive, just avoid that. You know, people are risk averse, I think right now is the best way to say it.
Yeah, Soho, like Freshworks, which is the next one.
Yeah.
You know, they come from India, and they, you know, they have a mentality of the rest of the world. They are not US centric. So when they develop product, you know, the thing of India, and then India is like the rest of the world. You know, India is complex, Europe is complex, Latin America is complex. You know, so they have that perspective. You know, and Freshworks is also one of those. And I see Freshworks, you know, which is it's really strong in the IT, you know, service market, and they're moving into marketing and sales. And I still believe they need to grow more into that area. But how do you see Freshworks evolving?
The number one thing I hear routinely from Freshworks customers is that their own customer support is awesome. So if they have questions, if they're trying to, you know, reroute tickets in a certain way, Freshworks representatives are very good about helping their customers achieve what they're doing. And we talked earlier about, you know, what are the differentiations between Salesforce and some other vendors? Service is one of those things in a lot of cases. And I think as Salesforce has scaled, customers used to rave about the support from Salesforce. It was top notch. But I think as their customer base has grown, you know, you know, the account managers haven't really scaled along with that. And so when we talk about, you know, being a partner with your CRM vendor, if you have a different account manager every 6 months, it's hard to do that. That's something that Freshworks does really well. So when I compare Freshworks to, say, Salesforce, the number one thing that customers always say is just the service is top notch.
Yeah. And HubSpot came from marketing, and they're moving into sales and service.
Mm-hmm.
And they, you know, they have some direct to consumer implementations, and they're everywhere from the marketing perspective. The sales is good. You know, I've seen it. Now they're catching up with custom objects and a new development platform. I'm talking like the last year or so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's why a lot of people left Salesforce, went to HubSpot, and said, "Wait, I cannot do this over here. let me go back.
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
but HubSpot extremely strong. I always recommend customers, if you're gonna go full blown HubSpot, go with the enterprise, buy the operational hub as well. How do you see HubSpot now?
Uh, it seems as though they are listening to customers. We ran a survey a little while ago. Just it was like a customer satisfaction survey, and HubSpot routinely kind of scored higher than some other vendors in that space. And I think that's going to be really important because vendors that are taking customer feedback in a positive stride are going to keep getting better. HubSpot's done a lot last year, and they're going to continue, I guess, to take the customer feedback to maybe potentially make it so they don't run into scaling problems, then go back to Salesforce, and then come back to HubSpot. So just taking that information, it shows their willingness to be proactive, I guess, in sort of just heightening the functionality of their solutions.
Yeah, one of the things that I like with HubSpot, because from my, the service consulting side where we do implementations, we have worked with all these vendors, and we have integrated all kinds of technologies, and one of the key things, especially when you talk about MarTech and doing campaigns or managing the life cycle of, they no longer have the lead object, they have a life cycle tracking, and now they have a campaign management governance functionality. So you have accountability. So this is no longer looking at attribution reports that you have, which they have some excellent attribution reports, but they have the campaign governance in place, which eventually is going to evolve into, a customer journey governance. And eventually, a lot of these tools will evolve into having their own CDPs or connecting to other CDPs, having preferred vendors. Anybody that I missed? Any vendor that you think, oh, we should, you should be also considering this other vendor?
The only one I keep in mind, and only because we were talking about Fresh Works, would be Zendesk, and we talked a little bit about AI
No,
earlier
well,
and how
Zendesk, I forgot about Zendesk. Yeah.
yeah, for service specifically, Zendesk is very good. They're really one of the only. They're taking a different approach to AI than everybody else, and that's worth, I think, mentioning. Building their large language models based on previous customer interactions makes that so much smarter. And it makes it more applicable too, because at the end of the day, every business strives for optimal customer experiences. And I don't know about you, but anytime I'm on a website and someone starts talking to me and I realize it's a bot, it gets frustrating, especially when the bot doesn't do what it's designed to do. Right. And I think Zendesk is taking a cooler approach to that with like their blended conversations to sort of, let the bot do what the bot does well, and let people do what people do well too. That's just like a little bit of a different approach, I think, to the whole AI conversation, which again is a podcast in and of itself. But they've just been doing a lot of cool stuff over there, so I thought it was just kind of worth calling out.
Yeah, actually, funny that me Zendesk because I'm helping a customer implement Zendesk, but has a different approach. We're implementing Zendesk integrated with Salesforce, but Zendesk is the omni-channel
Interesting.
layer, and why? Because it's so easy to connect to the digital channels. Easy to connect to WhatsApp, easy to connect with any of those, Viber, WeChat, blah, blah, and so on and so on. And easy to create the chatbots for all those channels.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, drag and drop, and they have the Sunshine, send the Sunshine, which is an omni-channel,
Yeah.
but you can still use send the service as an omni-channel, and as long as you maintain those chatbots and you drive the conversation, then you can bring that into Salesforce to do sales, customer service, more complex customer service and so on. But it's that channel, that's that interaction of omni-channel. Yes, you have send the service, we compete with Service Cloud, okay, but the connectivity is there. Where you want to do that in Salesforce, you have to buy the engagement studio or the digital engagement, which is very specific to service, and depending how your budget, you have to look into that. So talking about these chatbots, AI, conversational AI, omni-channel, customer journey, CDPs, and that's where we're moving. We're moving into ecosystems, platforms that expand just besides, sales and service, or marketing for that matter. Uh, how do you see the market? What is, should people start looking at bringing omni-channel? Should people, for example, Zoho One already has your own mini omni-channel. That might be enough for you, which includes, WhatsApp, telephony, everything. And or should you bring Twilio or Infobit or bring, a Genesis or Five9 or buy a customer journey app? Where do you see the market, going with all those different other technologies?
Yeah, it seems as though vendors are more willing to play nicely with their competition in a lot of cases, right? Because I think vendors are starting to realize, there's one thing that maybe they do really well, but they're understanding of the fact that maybe they don't do some other area as well. In order to, help end users get, the best out of their platform, they're willing to have more integrations, native integrations with other folks, especially with Salesforce. See everyone has a native integration with Salesforce, right? So I think because of that sort of like willingness to sort of, focus on what you do really well and, let your customers use other vendors for different parts of their, I guess CX strategy, that's completely fine. And I think as a result, as those integrations between different vendors gets better, people can kind of build their own sort of ecosystem. It's going to make the most sense for them. And I think it's definitely starting to trend that way.
Yeah, and one of the key elements that I see a lot is that, and I think, when social CRM was very active, that term out there, and I was part of one of those guys out there. I had a term in Spanish: "Tenemos que convertir conversaciones en transacciones." We need to convert conversations into transactions.
Yes.
And every time that we go ahead and install a chatbot, or we try to be in, machine learning, or some sort of AI, Watson, or whatever, and now, Gen AI, and we try to do omni-channel or customer journey, everything needs to end in a conversation, in a human conversation. That could be WhatsApp, that could be Messenger, that could be, I go and visit the store, the retail store, or I go and visit, the admin office in a school, or I go to the customer service, T-Mobile or AT&T, whatever that is. You always end in a conversation or in an email. Okay, so, right now, we have a master class via Service Consulting about how you can, for example, integrate Salesforce with Twilio, Salesforce with Amazon Connect, Salesforce with Zendesk. And this is, proof of concept demo, so you get the idea that this is not about putting the chatbot and automating the e-commerce transaction, or just, making sure that people, go through WhatsApp to talk to you. Is how you're going to enable the customer through the life cycle, engage with you, and engage via a conversation. You can automate it. Okay, you can do a bunch of stuff. You can bring costs, you can have deflection costs, and so on and so on. But you need to be sure that your technology is stack. And I think this is why a lot of the vendors are catching up with Salesforce, is that they're putting all these pieces together so you can enable the conversation at the very end. And I've seen from customers, that the moment that you engage, that you have that conversation, that, your conversion rate goes up, and the customer satisfaction, goes up as well.
Absolutely.
I seen that trend a lot. So that's why, I wanted to talk to you, because a lot of these technologies are evolving towards that. HubSpot has their own plugin for phone. They have their own plugin for chat. They have their own plugin now for WhatsApp. The same for all the other tools. They want to bring that data, and so you can use it to engage the customers. And I think that's for me the last mile of all of this. Okay, so we say all this, Cameron. How you see the market, and second, how people can get in contact, so that they can contact you guys to know more about, technology investments.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is just www.nucleusresearch.com. You can email us at hello.nucleus. My name's Cameron Marsh, again, senior analyst, covering CRM space. And, we cover way more than just CRM space too. We kind of cover all aspects of business technology, ERP, HCM, everything. But I guess my final thought on the market is it's going to be an interesting ride. I think, as AI, and that's just kind of the hot ticket item right now. But as that progresses, it's really going to show which vendors are in tune with their customers and which ones aren't. And as a result, how end of the day, all you really want to do is help your customers provide the best possible experience for their customers, right? And that's kind of what you were talking about, right? Is how do you get those conversations going? How do you create a memorable experience for your customers? Because right now, customers have decreased patience and no brand loyalty. So how do you change that? Right? How do you leave that lasting impact where people want to do repeat business? And that's really what CRM is all about, right? It's not just starting the conversation, but keeping it going and building, a relationship.
Keep the conversation going to the whole cycle. I agree.
Exactly.
That's a way to do it. And not everybody knows. Not all companies know how to do that very well.
Right.
For many reasons. Okay, for many reasons. Okay, Cameron, thank you so much for your time today. And we'll be talking to you soon. Everybody, you can follow me in my different social media channels. If you like this, you can click, subscribe to the podcast, all the cool stuff that you're supposed to do. So you follow me. Thank you so much and cuídense mucho. Hasta la próxima.